About this more now with Middle East affairs analyst Antony Loewenstein, who joins us from Sydney. He's also the author of the books The Palestine Laboratory and My Israel Question. Thanks very much for being with us. So if we talk about these redevelopment plans, senior White House advisor Jared Kushner talking about skyscrapers, residential towers, seaside resorts, and the reality on the ground, what we've just seen, tent cities, people not being protected from the cold, hypothermia, the most basic needs not being met. How do we explain this disconnect?
These plans by the Trump administration are not for Palestinians. They're not for people in Gaza. They are for real estate advisors and friends and people like Jared Kushner, who have massive multi-billion-dollar business interests in the Middle East, particularly the Gulf. You speak to any Palestinian from Gaza, and I have a number of friends there, and they will tell you, of course, they want peace, they want rebuilding, they want reconciliation. There's no question about that. But when Jared Kushner and Donald Trump talks about the so-called ceasefire since October, they conveniently ignore the fact there's been more than 500 Palestinians murdered in the last 3.5 months since the ceasefire. There is no security, there is no safety, there is no warmth, there is no housing. And the idea somehow that building skyscrapers for potential tourism, which on paper, sure, the idea of I've been to Gaza myself a number of times over the last nearly 20 years. Gaza is an incredibly beautiful place on the Mediterranean, but let's not ignore the fact that it is an area and a country that has tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of bones. Palestinians who've been murdered by Israel. And as finally, it ignores also the Israeli government here. Now, you could argue that Jared Kushner has always been a propagandist for the Israeli state. That's true. But the Israeli government itself has no interest in rebuilding Gaza. They have no interest in developing Gaza. They have an interest in keeping Gaza as an open-air prison. And the Israeli government itself hasn't approved this, doesn't support this, has no interest in this. In fact, their ultimate goal is to remove Palestinians from Gaza. That aim has not changed. And there's going to be an election this year in Israel. Assuming Netanyahu doesn't cancel it. Netanyahu might win, he might lose, but the likely alternative is a man called Naftali Bennett, who's been Prime Minister before. His plan, as he said recently for the millionth time, is to restart the war and destroy Hamas. So when Jared Kushner and Donald Trump and all these other cretins like Tony Blair talk about peace in Gaza, it's a delusion and it's a lie, and Palestinians do not rightly believe it.
What do you think is the more realistic option? If we talk about the reconstruction of Gaza, what do you think is the more realistic option then in terms of rebuilding?
I mean, in terms of what's likely to happen is I fear there's not going to be much. And what needs to happen is, of course, you need to remove huge amounts of rubble. Of course, Rafah needs to reopen. I know there's talk about that reopening soon, but the Israeli government hasn't approved that, and many in the government oppose it. So let's see if that actually happens. Is there going to be allowing of, for example, the technocratic crew that the Trump administration has put in place to oversee this, who thus far have not been given permission? There needs to be a removal of rubble. There needs to be obviously some rebuilding, but that cannot solely come through a so-called Board of Peace, which is an Orwellian organization that has no legitimacy anywhere. So what needs to happen is obviously a cessation of violence. The violence has not stopped. In the last 24 hours, huge amounts of Palestinians are being killed. 3 journalists, including someone who has worked for CBS News in the US, was murdered by Israel. I mean, there's been well over 200 journalists who were killed by Israel since October 7. This needs to stop. The violence needs to stop. And it shames me as a Western journalist how little that is getting coverage. There is this kind of admiration in so much of the Western press for the pretty PowerPoint presentations that Jared Kushner got someone else to do up, which, by the way, had backwards Arabic on it. The guy is a fool. He does not understand anything about the reality of what's happening in the Middle East beyond his business interests and pleasing Israel. But the violence needs to stop. That's the priority now.
Good to talk to you, Antony Loewenstein, joining us there from Sydney. Thank you.